Hey, what's up, everybody? And this is Dr. Loso, and you're listening to Career Insights 501. And today we have Alyssa McDonald, and she is a performance and career coach, and she's here to talk to us today about how you can make your career a whole lot better. So she's going to give us a lot of great insight and share a lot of good information with us today. So welcome to the show, Alyssa.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So if you want, let's just start off by telling the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a performance and career coach, as you said, out of Vancouver, Canada. And I work with business leaders and entrepreneurs to help make their lives easier and to improve their performance. And usually I get a call by people because they're in crisis or they want to quit or they hate their job in some capacity. So although I talk a lot about improving business results, it actually ends up being a lot about how to reduce stress, improve well-being, and really design the work and the life that they want so that it doesn't take over their lives.
I think there's I'm excited about this conversation because I think just with a lot of the things that I've read about remote work, I've read some reports or studies or articles that say that people are working more now that they're working from home than they would typically in the office. So I'd like to get some insights or just like see what you've heard or, working with your clients and how that's been either positive or negative. But yeah. So
happy to jump into that if you want.
Oh, go right ahead.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely. So I work remote as well. So most of my calls, with the exception of a few people that I meet in person for fun, is remote. And what I've found is it removes a lot of the social interactions and communications and relationship building. And also just you have more time or more energy to focus. And that could end up kind of extending beyond what you might intend or want to. And part of the thing that I do as a coach is to be able to reflect on, okay, am I working more? Do I want to work on this much? But then also communicate with other people because you have to be more intentional online. Communicate with their clients, with their bosses, with their team around setting those expectations, because negotiating for those needs to be met is super awkward if you're not used to it and really difficult. So those are kind of two ways that I help design the work and the life. It's always good to have a sounding board to say, hey, is this working for me? I'm really uncomfortable. Why is that?
Mm-hmm. Do you think those negotiating skills are the same negotiating skills that people need when negotiating things like salary or can be used when negotiating those type of things with their work, I guess, life balance? Or those are different set of negotiation skills?
I would say same thing. A lot of people are really uncomfortable with negotiation and really uncomfortable with sales. But as you'll hear throughout maybe my career journey, we'll talk later, I worked in sales and had formal negotiation training. And when you negotiate your salary versus when you negotiate how, when, or with who you work is the same skills. You're trying to create a win-win scenario where you can work at your best and do the work that what they want, but in the ways that work for you, which includes being compensated properly.
Yeah, true.
Huge.
I think that's an important thing, and I didn't really realize this, I guess, really honestly, until I started writing my book about negotiating. Is a kind of like networking. It's a win-win situation for both, and it's not okay, I need to get everything that I want out of this situation, or this person is trying to get like everything out of that situation. I think just generally speaking, people who don't really have negotiation skills or have had that type of training, like that might be the mentality of a lot of people when it comes to negotiating. Is just kind of like, how can I get the most of what I want without giving up anything? So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
even some of my clients, I train their employees how to negotiate their salary because they're negotiating with the CEO, a manager who might be formally trained in that. But if you're putting young, first job out of university, new immigrant, negotiating with the CEO, who's a middle-aged white man, and you're expecting a good outcome. Well, it's not going to happen if they don't have the right skills to do so. And if they don't feel good about that conversation, they're not happy with their compensation, they're going to leave. That's going to cost them money to train a new person, hire a new person. It's much easier to just equip them to have a good conversation.
yeah. What would be two, what would you say are the two most important negotiation skills for somebody to have?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think first of all, understanding the intention of negotiation is it's in everybody's best interest to have a good outcome, because if someone is unhappy, it will only be so long before that person is resentful or leaves or it causes conflict. And then I think two is self-awareness, to be really, really clear on like what you need and why. And then the third is, I don't only ask for two, but the third is to understand what the other person needs and coming at it to say, hey, like, what does a business need with the CEO? What's his problem on a day-to-day basis? How can you help him if he gives, or if them? I know in this scenario, I'm thinking about one CEO in particular, but how can you help them in their job? Because make it easy for them.
Mm-hmm. And where do you think self-advocacy comes into play when negotiating? So I was having this conversation with a group of people. It was really brief, but we were talking about bragging, and they were saying self-advocating. I was like, self-advocating isn't the same thing as bragging. So some debate around that, which I still think that I was right. But
not to brag.
not to brag, but I think I was right on that one. So I know with a lot of people in minority groups, and so I use myself as an example, and I was saying that I don't think that I'm as far as I should be in my career with like the degrees that I have and my work experience, because I feel like if I do self-advocate sometime that it would come off as bragging. Now looking back at it, it's just kind of like, what the hell, just go for it, and like type of attitude. And if they feel that type of way, then that's on them. But I feel like in the end, me or a person in my similar situation or mindset ends up losing out more because they didn't go for it.
Yeah. And this actually goes back to kind of my approach or how I coach people. So, generally I support people with performance in their career, but how I do that is when I take on a new client, I can either take on a client individually or be hired by an organization to coach their entire leadership team. And in either of those circumstances, I work one-on-one with people, and I actually start by building a strengths profile. So what are your biggest motivators, which are usually your values? What are your strengths? What are the dark sides of those strengths? So, for example, I'm really optimistic, which means I'm not good at timelines. I might be late to things, but being optimistic as a coach and energetic is why I have my job. So just being mindful of those. What are professional development opportunities and other things related to your working style? Like, I'm a mornings person, I'm an evening person. Don't Slack message me at this time. And I get them to really like build the data like they're a researcher by pulling up their financials, their performance reviews, their feedback at school, getting them to interview people that they've worked with, their friends, their family, their partners, their clients, doing personality tests. And what I do is, because my education is as a industrial organizational psychologist, so work psychologist, and so I build like a psychological profile for them so we can be really clear and we can know, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, and be objective about it. Like, you spent now 20 hours doing all of this work. If, you know, and I say that a little bit facetiously, but it does take a long time to say, I've pulled all the feedback and this is what I'm good at objectively. And so it's more about at that point, if you've done your research, you know the data, and you've worked with a coach to identify that, you can feel confident without bragging. And it's really important for people to know what you're good at in order for them to hire you for the right things, and for them to really put you in a place where they're going to get the most value out of you.
That's a lot of good stuff. I do want to go back to one thing that you said that I found interesting, the dark sides of your strengths. And I never thought about that, but using your example as being like optimistic. So that got me to thinking, like, a person that's overly optimistic and like only sees or looks for the positives might, look over the things, the flaws or the defaults or the risks that could happen in a project or what have you. So I like the way that you put that. Yeah, I would have never.
Yeah, it's a part of kind of the approach that I take is positive psychology and strength-based or asset-based thinking. So it's always focusing on what's working well. And a part of that is recognizing that some things you're not good at, and that the aspect of radical self-acceptance. And I'm not in this vein. It's not like you say, okay, well, you're bad at estimating. Oh, well, it's okay. Can you outsource those things? Can you delegate those things? Can you get support on it? Can you stop doing it altogether sometimes? Right? So if you keep trying to write a book, but you're a talker, it's like, just don't write the book. Get somebody else to write it. Stop writing and start a podcast, right? And to not feel a sense of shame or around it, and just say, hey. So in my life, with this example of being optimistic, I look at the data. So I try and track my time. How long does it actually take? Well, I said it would take this long, but it took this long. Okay, I adjust. I have an amazing assistant who supports me on project management tasks. My partner has a background in project management and entrepreneurship, so he looks over my timelines like, are we good here? And these are kind of my guidelines and my guardrails, I should say, to not lose it because I'm optimistic and not, run my business into the ground because of that. Yeah.
It's funny you said it about writing a book, because I'm a big Toni Braxton fan. I was watching her reality show with her sisters when it was airing, and she was going through the process of writing her book, but she had somebody there helping her write the book, and I was like, what the hell? So I think too, part of it is knowing like what's out there, because I was like, I never, like, in my mind, it's like you wrote the book and you got an editor to like edit it, not somebody to come in and like write the book for you. So that was that was crazy to me. But there's a lot of different resources and online tools out there that people can use to get help or outsource a lot of things, like Fiverr. A lot of people use Fiverr for huge. Yeah.
And so I think one of the things is people don't even recognize how hard some things are. But even if it's not out there, you could find it. Like, it's just like, make it up. So, for example, I have a client. She's a CEO, founder. She cannot answer her emails. It's just impossible for her. Sometimes it takes a month. Sometimes they never get back. And I resonate with this also. And so I've worked with her to hire someone who reads her emails, answers them for her, identifies the specific task that she needs to do, either puts it into her project management software or into her calendar, or makes her do it on the call. Emails are answered. And somebody might feel bad. It's like, oh, you should be able to answer your emails, but you can't. So what? Now what do we do about it? Because you make enough money to hire somebody, or if you're doing the thing that you're good at, you'll make enough money to hire somebody. In theory, it takes time, but
Yeah. I'm right there with you all with the emails. I absolutely hate emails. I literally
Mm.
just cleaned up my Outlook inbox, and I think I had like over 4,000 like unopened emails in my Outlook inbox. So that was a chore. Google wasn't too much better. It was like 2 or 3,000 emails in there that I had to clean out. So yeah, there might be like some kind of clinical term or like condition for people
Yeah.
like us.
But there's a no need to pathologize it. It's just like, oh well, I don't like that. Cool.
Yeah,
And because
yeah.
I don't like it, I don't want to do it. And it's more about like the now what? Okay, how
Hmm.
do I not do it?
Yeah.
I don't like emails either. So if you want to talk, here's my calendar. Don't even message me. Just put it in my calendar, and my clients know that like I'm not going to respond to them via text. I don't want to email them. It's in
Hmm.
person. It's like on video,
Yeah.
which is my preferred format and the best quality communication that you can get. It's
True.
high on the totem pole of
Yeah.
communication.
I agree 100%. Well,
Hmm.
let's talk about your educational background a little bit. So you say you went to school for organizational psychology. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Industrial organizational psychology, which if somebody is a
Okay.
nerd around career or work stuff, is the same degree that Adam Grant from Work Life has. He's our
Okay.
rock star in organizational psychology, and our only reference point. There are no other famous organizational psychologists yet.
Yeah, you're the
Yeah.
second one. You'll be the second.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, it sounds like that played a lot into what you're doing now. So when you were going to college and, obtaining, working on this degree, did you have the mindset of wanting to be an entrepreneur and doing what you're doing now, or did you see yourself doing something different while you were in college?
Yeah. So I feel like there's many, many questions and many answers within what you just said. But I actually did my undergraduate degree. So I'm in using Canadian language. I know it's college is like your undergrad, I think, in Canada, your bachelor's degree. And I
Hmm.
did it in marketing and communications.
Okay.
So I went to an art school in high school and I did performing arts and visual arts. And I realized that I liked producing and marketing the shows more than being in them, even though I love performing. And I started working as an assistant to a marketing consultant in high school. Got a job doing an office and sales manager for a creative agency while I was doing my first 2 years of university. And really loved communications. I ended up doing an internship at Toronto and moving to Montreal and having a lot of really cool work experiences through that time while I was going to school, because I really liked the idea of communicating good ideas so that people could solve problems and buy products that they like. And I was really interested in corporate social responsibility and social entrepreneurism as well. And once I worked for so long in that marketing industry, I was like, oh crap, there are so many problems before you get to the point of marketing a product from a people standpoint. Like people are leaving, there's bad managers, there's, a lack of meaning in the work is not designed properly, like just so many problems in the workplace that
Hmm.
actually a better problem, other than communicating good ideas to the market, is helping people actually have better work experiences that are more meaningful. And so that's when I went back to do my master's in organizational psychology and just fell in love. It was a true dream. And I think, yeah, I did not intend to be a coach. In fact,
Hmm.
I was really passionate about the idea specifically of bringing social impact into every role and ended up doing sustainable supply chain consulting, which is really cool. I love
Nice.
procurement. And it was doing change management. Like, how do we change how we budget to be more socially, environmentally, and ethically responsible to hire from, work with local businesses and BIPOC businesses and Indigenous businesses. How do we reduce greenhouse gases by just writing in the requirements, oh, must use clean energy. But I had it wasn't a good working situation as far as the operations of the company. So even though I thought I was going to be there for 5 years, I felt the need to quit for my mental health and my own morals. So I just didn't think it was the right way to run a business, and accidentally ended up as a coach.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, this is Alyssa McDonald, and you're listening to Career Insights 501 by Dr. Loso.
I'm so glad that you said that. I think more and more people need to say that, at least the younger generations, that the workforce, that college isn't designed to keep up with the fast-paced changes of just like corporate America, or like, these different industries. And I say that all of the time. If you think about how slow the world was changing back then, you could go into college and get a job as this thing and have a career and retire in that. But things are changing so fast now, and there's all these different, I feel like, hybrid careers that are popping up. It's my job as an instructional designer. I have to be like almost a graphic designer, a web developer, edit videos, audio, on top of knowing those learning, methods, and doing research and evaluating, and just, so you have to know just a lot of different things. And just with the fast pace of how, like, looking at things like ChatGPT now, and, AI and robotics and all these things that are coming into play, college it really isn't built for, how that part of society works. I definitely, don't get me wrong, like I say, doctor, lawyers, a lot of those things, like psychologies, some of those humanity majors, you definitely need those things. I think they're more, future proof than just like graphic design. I'm thinking about like great artists. I was like, do you really need an art degree to be a great artist? Like, just draw. So it's crazy. But I think too, just not to like harp on like education, but you talked about how expensive it was. I think that a lot of people now are seeing how lucrative education can be. So you have these online platforms or boot camps, or people, charging exorbitant prices for different types of educational services for people, because they know they need that training or those skills to get into new jobs.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of them, and even a lot of coaches, like, are you really qualified to do that training? Often no, but
yeah.
I will just say one thing, especially about, a lot of boot camps. If you're able to validate that these people are qualified, they're working in industry, they have that they have the credibility, boot camps are great. I think what's really lagging behind, and what's really scary to me, is academia, and how you have a lot of researchers who are not practitioners, who have no experience or very little experience in the field that's relevant, teaching people who are destined to work in organizations. And so I actually put my master's on pause, so I haven't done my thesis, because I've done everything else, but I haven't done my final master's project, because I feel like to me, this is my metaphor, is it's like being a ghost. Like, academia is in the world, in this metaphor, right? But not of the world.
Exactly.
They can't speak with you. They can't communicate with you because the language is not accessible. It's not practical. It's too technical, and a million other reasons. And they never actually interface. And they end up being so divided, and that divide over time just gets greater and greater. So I really, although there's some amazing skills that you can learn around like research and understanding validity and reliability and, having research-based work, I think it's really bad to not have practitioners within your educational system if you're going to be working in the workplace.
I agree 100%. With my PhD program, and I learned a lot just going, to grad school with how college is. And because I worked within the department as a graduate teaching assistant, and then I worked as a research assistant, and I worked in the office of the grad school. But so I started looking into jobs, and I noticed that we needed to have like a program that was called the Captivate or Storyline. And nowhere in the three like bachelor's, master's, or PhD were they teaching that software. And I was just like, what the hell? I went to school for all these years getting all these degrees, and I don't even know the industry standard software, but they were just so focused on creating like an army of researchers. And most people that were in the program, even the PhD program, wanted to go into like industry and just work and do instructional design in industry. And it was just like, we had no portfolio, nothing really to show. And it was just like, it's just been hell trying to get jobs.
Academia has a bad rep within a lot of corporate spaces. It's overly complicated. It's like, oh yeah, but you don't know how it works in the real world. Which in some ways is true, because it's like, okay, well, when it goes to having that simple conversation of what is stopping you, like that to change, the color of the slides potentially could have just like, hey, do these slides work for you? No, why? Just doing that and having that conversation is probably more impactful in a lot of ways than having like 8 research papers that you've reviewed and you're like, oh yeah. Because it's not, it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Right. Yeah.
Continuous improvement.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's definitely a big thing. Yeah. So I'll switch it over to some more light questions, not so serious questions, and we'll ask Alyssa, what does she listen to while she's working or working out? What type of music do you listen to? What's on your Apple or Spotify playlist?
It's so funny. I when I'm working, I don't listen to any music.
Really?
I'm on calls a lot, so
okay.
I'm talking a lot of the time, but I am diagnosed ADD, and I just find, silence is really good, or kind of like light background noise if I'm in a cafe is fine. Otherwise I'm singing, or whatever it is. And in my personal life, I actually listen to a lot of self-help books or podcasts instead of music. But I will say I really like the intersection between like hip hop, funk, house, R&B. That's my spectrum. And
so kind of like Bruno Mars, some of his type of music.
Yeah, so I would say he's like a pop funk. I really like Anderson .Paak. Channel Trez is another good one. A more up and coming one. And I like being around other people who are really into music, because then I get to learn more about different musicians. I love everything. Gotcha. I just want to be at the concert. I don't care what the concert is.
Just catching the vibe, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So what I plan on doing is like getting everybody that's on here to give me like one song and like create a playlist of the guests. Yeah. So.
Okay, I'll have to think about that.
Okay. It could be white noise. They might need a break from some of the crazy stuff that we might get. I don't know what we're going to get, so they might need to give their ears a rest. So I'm going to ask you 5 this or that questions.
Okay.
Well, would you rather? I'm sorry. Would you rather drop the soap in prison or get shanked in prison? I think this is a better question for a guy, but
Yeah. Drop this out for sure.
would you rather cut off 6 of your own fingers and 1 foot, or bring Hitler back to life as an invisible killer robot zombie?
Oh wow. Yeah, cut off my hand. Can people know about it? Because it would be nice to be a hero. I'll lose my
Yeah.
hands and my feet. Especially if people will know the sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would know.
Yeah, don't bring Hitler back.
Yeah, definitely stay where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather be Iron Man but have to leave the suit on at all times, or be the Hulk but have to stay in Hulk form at all times?
Is this Smart Hulk or is this Dumb Hulk?
Oh,
Yeah.
look at it. I guess it doesn't matter. You can pick which Hulk you want to be.
I'll be Smart
She-Hulk.
Hulk. No, that was a terrible show. I will be Hulk. Yeah, I think. Although, like, if you get to be Tony Stark vibes, like Tony Stark is the best. I love him. But I would rather not wear a metal suit. Like, physical touch is nice.
Right. Yeah.
So I would be the Smart Hulk.
Okay. Would you rather be fluent in all languages and never be able to travel, or be able to travel anywhere for a year but never be able to learn a word of a different language?
Oh, God. I would rather travel than know all the languages. Although that is the closest one so far. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Last one. Would you rather work for the FBI or the CIA?
Well, I'm Canadian, so I don't know. But I would rather work within the country than external to the country. So I would go for the FBI.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, but I decided to save it for this segment of the show. What is your favorite stage play or Broadway play? I know you said you were into that.
Yeah. Oh man. I honestly haven't seen a lot of like large productions of large productions on like Broadway or musical theater. But I will rep Canada and say that there is a really beautiful musical called Home from Away about a province called Newfoundland accepting Syrian refugees. It's really amazing and highly recommend checking it out or learning more about it. Yeah.
Okay. And what are some things that you do for self-care?
I always say that partying is my self-care. So
I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I do all the regular things. Like, I exercise, I go swimming, we have a stationary bike at home, yoga, walking, going outside, talking to friends, journaling, therapy, all the stuff, the regular stuff. But I think the one that really hits it for me is, like partying, being with friends, dancing. There's this idea in organizational psychology, or this theory called build and broaden, which it's basically when you're stressed, you're in your fight or flight animal brain, and you need to have pleasurable, like naturally pleasurable and fun experiences to come to your prefrontal cortex and to have your highest thinking, your best problem solving, relationship building. And so having fun is part of doing life. Like you have to have fun to not be stressed. So, I internalized this way back in like early university. Like I would, go out during exams still. I would like have a nice dinner and a beer with a friend before the night before, because I knew in my soul that in order for me to do my best work, I couldn't be stressed. And in fact, it's better when I'm in a positive mood because your memory recall is better and so on. So having fun is my self-care. And it could be silly things. Like it could be, like I played dodgeball with a group of friends recently. So just like being silly, having fun, it's part of my life's work.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that about the when you're stressed, you're in the fight or flight mode. So it makes me think about people stressed out at work when they're either thinking about quitting or like flipping over a desk. So
it's like, go get an ice cream, okay? Go like see a comedian that night, and then come back the next day and think through what you're gonna do about it.
So I know you said you wanted to give like some tips out to people when we talked earlier. And I think you've done a great job of that already, but are there any other things that you wanted to share with the listeners?
I think if ever you're feeling down on yourself, or whenever, because it happens all the time, even for me, every day there's a moment or two where I'm like, oh, I should have done better, or I can't believe I did that. Is just to remember that if you believe you're doing your best, there's two things. Either you don't have the skills to do it, or you're not setting yourself up for success. So never blame yourself or get down on yourself. There's no point if you're trying hard. Like, people have so many barriers for different reasons. Maybe it's identities that they hold. Maybe it's stressful situations. Maybe it's the economy, cost of living is going up. Like, that's part of, poor conditions. So what can you do to build the skills or to set yourself up differently? If you're doing your best, you're doing your best. And what can you change is really the thing.
Mm-hmm. I love that as well. I know I keep saying I love that during the interview, but for using myself as an example again, I'm just ready to leave corporate America because I don't think that I would ever find the ideal job for like what I want to do as an instructional designer. So that's why I really started focusing on my like insight stuff and my book and everything, and I get so much joy out of it, even though it's a hell of a lot of work. You work a full-time job and then you have to edit videos, find people to come on the podcast and just do all this other different stuff. But like talking to you, I learned so much today, and the other guests, and meeting people in different countries and continents. And I had no idea that I would be interviewing people in like London and Nigeria and Canada and all those places. I was just like, I just go to these conferences and meet some people and go on LinkedIn and find people in my network. And so it's just been amazing, with me making that post on Polywork and just getting a chance to talk to people and hearing their experiences and, what made them, start doing what they're doing now or start their own business. So for me, it was just doing something outside of work that really brought that sense of fulfillment, because like you just mentioned, the barriers, like financially, I can't quit my job. Like, this thing is draining money. It's not making me any money right now. So, I can't quit until I would say, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 years, I would be able in a spot where I could be able to support myself financially with this. But that's.
Can I give you a challenge? Yeah. Okay. So I would say, and this is like modeling how maybe other people who are listening to your podcast can say is, okay, you love this podcast, you love meeting people, it brings you energy, you're learning, you're able to apply that. Can you say, at my job, I'm going to interview for people from all across the company about how they're doing instructional design, and be able to bring what you love to your work and helping build bridges. So maybe that your current job could actually be more like your dream job. That's my suggested challenge for you.
Okay, that's another conversation. It's definitely a challenge. Let me tell you, I've been trying some things, but it's just like pew, 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 pew. Every time I bring up an idea or something.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Oh gosh is right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, cut that part out.
Yeah, we gotta edit that out. Yeah. So, well, I have to get ready to wrap up here because I have somebody else coming up in like 12 minutes. But I really have enjoyed this conversation a whole lot. I met a guy in London, and we had a conversation. I just uploaded his today, and so we were talking about a panel, bringing back a panel. So, I don't know what the topic is, but I think that you would be a great person to have on the panel. We were talking about diversity and inclusion, so and I'll figure it out. But just I would love to have you back on the show, and if not for that, maybe we can just get into this more and to some of the topics that we talked about into more depth. So it's been a really great, I think, episode.
Awesome. Thank you. It was really fun and really natural. I think you do a great job.
Thank you.
And I love, it's my first podcast, so
Okay.
take that with a grain of salt. Just kidding. No, it was good. And, yeah, diversity and inclusion is really something that I really value. And I've worked on before, and I work a lot with people who hold various identities. And, I think it's important also just to like bring it down to the human aspect, like all of those identities lead to strengths that if you communicate in a way don't have to be about the fact that you're Black or that you're a woman or whatever. But in the end, when you communicate it as a value and as a strength from a skill it's just so easy to say yes to that. And I think a lot of it is just kind of like branding and communicating it in a way that the system can really easily acknowledge, which is difficult and labor and shitty, but like it's a step, right?
Yeah. Baby steps.
Yeah.
And did you want to let people know where they can contact you or reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. AlyssaMcDonald.com. ALYSSA McDonald McDonald.com. That's it.
Cool. And I will make sure I put all that information on your contact information and website and everything in the caption section of YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, Alyssa, again, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. And hope you have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.